Welcome to lunchtime or lunch break gentle yoga. So you're gonna potentially want a blanket. If you don't have a blanket, don't worry about it. But if you have one, it's helpful. Or you can use yoga blocks. I'll show you that in a minute. And you're gonna want a strap. So set the strap off to the side. We'll use that in a little bit. If you have a blanket, then you can put this crosswise. And then lie over it so that your chest rests on the blanket. There's a little bit of a fish position here. If you don't have a blanket, you can put a yoga block in the same place and then maybe even a block under your head. So if you'd rather your head were a little higher, you can elevate your head, okay? So we're just creating this kind of sense of opening across the chest, and you may have to do a little bit of wiggling to find the just right spot. Now, your legs can stretch all the way out, or you can put your feet in a little butterfly position. That might be nice. Or you can rest the feet on the floor. Okay? So you're just going to find the right shape for you. And I like my arms to go out in a T. I might need to go a tiny notch higher. There we go. So it should feel like your head can rest easily on the floor. If it's too tall, definitely put something under your head. And then even though this might push the shoulder blades around a little bit, you can adjust, and you want your arms to relax. And then we're going to use this elevated chest, sort of stretching out these secondary breathing muscles to give ourselves some nice, deep, smooth breaths. So the belly's going to rise with the breath, but we're also getting that expansion around the chest. And then just let the exhales fall out. Now I'm comfortable breathing in and out through my nose generally, but if it helps you to sigh out or to just breathe out through your mouth, you can do that as well. Let's stay here for about another 5 breaths. Just letting yourself relax. Maybe you're doing this outside and you can just watch the blue sky. Or if you're indoors, just feel yourself sink down into the floor for a few more breaths. So we're going to take one more big inhale. And then exhale out. We're going to take whatever's under us out. So if you've got a blanket, you're going to just roll to one. And you're going to take a moment just to bring your knees in. And give yourself a little back massage. Oh, goodness. Okay, so we're going to hold one leg. We're going to take the other leg out. So if you can grab your leg with both hands, do that. If that is ridiculous, you can take your strap, wrap that around your leg, hold with the strap. Or you can just, you can hold your pants leg. You can just let your leg hang out in space. I like the hugging in when I can do it, but it's not necessary. So you're going to spin your foot in circles. So we want to lubricate that little ankle joint and then go the other direction after you've done this. We were holding the leg and we're spinning the foot in circles going the other direction. Apparently I have used up all my space. Point and flex your foot here. All right, now, if you can still hold onto your leg, keep holding it and then press your heel up and stretch that leg out straight. Now, if that's too much for your hamstrings, it's too spicy, let go. Stretch the heel up. Get that stretch in the back of your leg. And then fold it and hug it in. And then flex the foot, stretch up through the back of the leg. Point the toe, hug it back in, and then we're going to do it one more time. And you're going to hold steady just for a moment. Okay, so now we're going to add the strap to this whole thing so we can stay a while. So you can take your big toe and hold on to, you can hold on to your big toe instead, or you can wrap a strap around your foot. And if you've got a strap that has a buckle, you can put the strap through the buckle so it makes a loop. I think that makes it easier. Okay. So, holding on either to your foot or to the strap, whichever is the right answer. You're going to take, a few moments here. So this other leg I'm going to stretch out, make sure it's resting okay on the floor. This guy, I want just the right amount of stretch in the back of the leg, not so much that it feels sharp, especially at the sit bone, right at that attachment. If you feel most of the stretch right here in the belly of your muscle, right in the middle, that's what we're going for. If there's any tenderness in the back of the knee, definitely back off. That's a really sensitive place. Now, I like to pull my toes down and press up through the heel so I can get the calf muscles to stretch a bit. We're going to stay for about, it's going to be about 6 more breaths here. All right, Zoomies, we're going to take a big inhale. You let go with a sigh. Now we're going to take the leg out to the side. Now, if you have a yoga block handy, you can stick that underneath the edge of your thigh. And I sort of angle the block so that when my leg goes out, it sits on the, my thigh sits on the long, smooth surface of the block instead of on the corner. And generally it holds steady if it's pinned between me and the mat. If for whatever reason that's not working, you can certainly use a throw pillow or you can use a blanket, whatever you've got at your house. And so this inner thigh area is what we're trying to stretch. And again, there's one muscle in the inner thigh that comes all the way down and attaches to this lower leg bone. And that can create, if it's really tight, it can create some discomfort through the knee joint. So you might find that if you angle the toes up a little bit or down a little bit, that you can take away some of that pressure. And the inner thigh muscles attach all along the surface of the bone between the pubic bone and the sit bone. And so that's a pretty delicate area. So again, if you feel those stretch really strongly at your pubic bone or in your groin, you can back off by bending the knee a little bit or bringing the leg back a little bit so it's not quite so far out. And we're going to stay for, again, about that 6 breaths or so. Okay, 2 more breaths. Now we're going to go all the way over for a twist. So you're going to exhale, come through the center, take your leg all the way across. If you are like me, you've got some space issues, what you can do outside of like just shifting a little bit is you can kind of allow an angle that works within your space. Now I mostly want my shoulder to stay on the floor. And then I'm going to reach so that I've got this outer hip in the stretch. I'm going to reach this hip down a little bit as I press into my foot. So I'm trying to create some space right here, like getting that hip to kind of move away from my ribs, away from my armpit. Just to shift that stretch around into the big glutes. Oh, because it's good, y'all. At least I hope it's good at your house. It's okay. We got about 5 breaths left. Okay, take a big inhale. And then we're going to come back. Now, take the strap off your leg, bend your knee, and you can give this leg a little shimmy first, a little shake. And then we're going to sort of rock the butt. We're going to do what's called rock the baby. So you're going to grab your thigh bone with one hand, and whatever, like if this is your right leg, right hand, and then grab your foot with your other hand. And we're just going to rock the leg across the body. Just moving the femur bone, this big bone in the leg, in the hip socket itself. Okay? And then you're just going to hug it in, and then we'll let it go. Now, nice and easy, stretch that leg out. I like to jiggle it again once I've gotten it all the way down on the ground, and then pause for a moment and feel. Can you feel the sense that that leg is relaxing? And does it feel a little different than the other leg when you compare the two? Sometimes I would swear to you that my leg has grown a couple of inches, and it usually feels almost like I'm closer to the ground on this side, especially around my low back and hip flexor area. I don't know if it worked for you, but hopefully it did. So we're going to leave that right leg, or whatever leg you just did, we're going to leave that guy resting, and we're going to grab the other leg. Okay, so hug it in a little if you can. Hug it in a lot if you can do that, and then swirl your foot around in circles. I do like anywhere between 6 and 10 circles in one direction, and then go the other way. Sometimes I get really into the ankle circles, and I'll do like 50 of them, and so that my calf muscles start to burn a little bit. I think that's fun. But maybe not today. So then you're going to point and flex your foot a few times. And again, we're just going to start moving into this hamstring stretch by straightening the leg, bending it, hugging it in. And again, you may not be able to keep holding it because hamstrings. So then you're going to extend the leg one more time, bring it in, and we're going to wrap the strap around. And then we're going to go, or you're going to grab your big toe, right? One of the two. And then we're going to go for the length. And again, like one leg might be a little different than the other. You might need to add a little space or hold on to the strap in a different place. You might need to let your leg, your opposite leg relax a little differently. And then we're going to stay for a good 6 or so breaths. Again, I like to put the strap way up on the ball of my foot so my heel pushes away. And that gives me, some nice stretch in my calf muscles. Oh, it's so good. Intense and good. All right, yogis, so we got 2 breaths. Now, we're going to take the leg out to the side, and again, I'm going to take a block. I'm going to position it so that it sort of leans into my hip, and then that my leg rests on the larger, smooth surface of the block. I think I'm going to just miss my furniture here, so that's good. And you might need to change things up. And again, you're monitoring the amount of stretch that's happening both through the knee joint to the lower leg bone, but also all around the groins, between your pubic bone and your sit bone. Just making sure you're not doing anything that feels like, ooh, you're going to tear something. Don't tear something in that region, y'all. Not good. That will not be fun. Muscle tears, really connective tissue tears, because that's really ultimately what's happening, is usually you're tearing somewhere in the connective tissue. So the fascia wraps around the whole muscle, and then it turns itself into denser tissue that becomes the tendons that hold that muscle onto the bones. So it's the tendon part that we usually damage when we're overdoing the stretch, right? So if you're feeling that where the bones are, that's a good indication that you're getting a little too spicy, right? You want to feel it right in the center of the, at least for this kind of a practice, right in the center of the muscle. So it's really centered in. And we've got one more big breath here. Okay, so then we're going to come all the way back. and over to the opposite side. And again, this is a twist. So depending on how much space you've got, you're going to come over, hold with the other hand. Try to keep your shoulder on the ground. You might add some extra props in there, like you could take your block and kind of give your bottom leg something to rest on, right? Okay, so then you're going to try to move this hip. It's not a big movement. This is super subtle, but you're just going to feel yourself sort of lengthen down the side. And that allows us to get into some of the deeper fibers of the glute. Oh, your boom boom. And you might feel this in all kinds of different places, because the connective tissue for this outer hip all kind of runs in different directions and different patterns, and there's multiple layers of it, so there's lots of things to feel. So we're going to stay for just a few more breaths, like another 20 seconds or so. So we're going to take a nice big inhale. And we're going to draw ourselves back. Oh, and slip the strap off. And again, you can give it a little jiggle. And then we're going to do a little rock the baby. So I'm going to grab hold of the foot. I'm going to hold on to my thigh bone. And I'm going to rock back and forth. Be mindful of how much torque you put on the lower leg joint at the knee. Oh. So I'm not pulling on my lower leg bone. I'm just, providing some stability so I can rock back and forth. Okay, then we're going to let that go. Oh, stretch it all the way out. And once you get there, you can jiggle the legs again. And then just pause for a moment and feel. Oh, you guys, I never get sick of those stretches. Like, they're just so good. They're so good. And I don't always remember to do them. It's nice to kind of settle into a practice and do them. Now, I keep a strap on my nightstand with the idea that I will do them at night before I go to sleep. And sometimes I do, but most of the time I don't. Not every day. Okay. So let's bring ourselves to a seated position. So you can do this nice and slow. Roll to one side, take a couple breaths. Especially if you feel lightheaded when you lie down. Some people have a blood pressure, like they have really low blood pressure because they're very athletic. Or you might have low blood pressure because you're on medication. And so, depending on the circumstances, you might need more time. Okay. Now, you can sit just simple cross-legged position, or you can put your feet together. You can sit up on the edge of a blanket or a pillow if that's helpful. Now, I'm rocking and leaning forward just to kind of get my sit bones aligned so that when I sit up, I can feel myself sort of perched on the tip tops of those bones. So if when you sit up, you tend to kind of sag backwards, that's where you know you should probably elevate your hips a little bit so you can sit up on the edge of something. Okay. So whatever leg's in front, that's the leg we're going to work with first. So we're going to rotate the spine towards that leg and then come out and rotate it towards that leg, and then come out, rotate it towards that leg. Now notice this point where you can start to feel your opposite hip come up. So you're going to sit up nice and tall. We're going to rotate the lower spine, and then we're going to rotate the upper part of the spine. So right now I'm just to the bottom of my shoulder blades, okay? So now I'm going to pay attention to the area above my shoulder blades and try to rotate that a little bit more. Then I'm going to put my arms down because I'm done there, and then I'm going to turn my head, okay? So I'm not directing myself with my head, but instead I'm directing myself one vertebrae at a time into this twist. Now I'm going to draw my shoulder blades a little bit down my back and a little bit into a figure eight sensation. So this shoulder in the back, I'm going to pull down and in. This shoulder in the front, I'm going to bring forward and up a little bit, because that sensation, it feels almost like I'm drawing an infinity symbol around my shoulder blades. But that releases some tension for me in my upper back. And I don't know about you, But if you're like me, you carry a lot of stress and tension in your upper back, which I have to assume is the reason that the Greek legend about Apollo, is it Apollo? No, I think I'm getting it wrong. But in any case, for some reason I can't come up with the right one. But you know, he holds the world on his shoulders. Yeah. That's going to come to me later on tonight, I'm sure. But in any case, like, if you were smart, yeah! If you're smart, you would hold the world like on your hip or something. It's way stronger than your shoulders. Atlas, that's it. All right, so we're going to let go of this twist. Oh, I don't know why that was hard. I say it all the time, but for whatever reason, my brain was focused on other things. Oh. And on the thievery that's happening around me by small furry creatures. In any case. So we're going to roll the spine back and forth, these little cat shapes. Oh, okay. Now, switch which leg is on top. Now, if it still feels like your spine is twisting in that direction, don't go anywhere yet. So if you can, you're going to sit up nice and tall. And again, we're going to pause and just get onto the tips of the sit bones, really root them down. We're going to turn just the lower back. Okay, so I'm not directing my head if I can help it. Then I'm going to spin one vertebrae at a time. I've gotten to the bottom of my shoulder blade. So right there, I'm going to get a little taller because I'm really going to try to get into this upper part of my back. So I'm going to rotate that part of me around as far as it wants to go, then turn the head. And so again, what I'm going to do with the back shoulder, this one over here, is I'm going to pull that backward and down. And this shoulder, I'm going to direct forward and up a little bit, just to create that sensation of that figure eight in my upper back. Now, this may not be for everybody, and maybe I'm just the one who found this really awesome. And when you do it, it's like, no, Candy, that's not good. In which case, don't do that. And sit up tall and breathe. Release some of that tension from your upper back, however you're going to do it. All right, take a big inhale. And then you're going to slowly unwind that thing. Little at a time, little at a time, little at a time. Oh, that feels so good to come out slow. Oh. And then do some little cat shapes with your back. We're going to take the legs out into a V. Now, if a V is tricky, because V's are tricky for some of us, there's a couple different solutions. One solution is don't go so wide, right? Somewhere in the middle, because maybe that's better. Solution number 2, and this is one that I use, is take your blanket if you've got it, or a couple of throw pillows if you've got those handy, whatever you got handy. Put that under your knees. So especially like something a little floofier, like a throw pillow, will have the knees a little bent, and that will take a little bit of the pressure off the pelvis. And then some of us just genetically, our hips don't go forward. But the good news is we're not going to go forward. We're going to go side to side. So all you got to do is get comfortable sitting upright for now. And then we're going to rotate toward one leg. We're going to side bend over the other leg. If you want to bend the leg you just turn towards, you can. So you can put your elbow on your thigh, you can put your hand on the floor, your hand on your shin. If you got a block handy, you can put your elbow on the block, all right? So we're going to do this in a couple of waves. So we're going to come over with a big stretch through the arm, then we're going to come out about halfway. And then over, big stretch with the arm, feel the edges of the stretch. Don't go past where you should right now, because we're going to do this, because we're doing it in like a little pulsation. Hopefully it's going to invite us in a little bit, okay? So we're giving our body a chance to get used to the idea. Okay, so now we're here. Now you can start to kind of feel your way into a little deeper shape. You could, maybe some people can grab their toes. I'm noticing the tendency to kind of lean away from the sit bones. So I'm just going to root my sit bone and stretch a little bit more. That gives my lower back a little bit more stretch sensation. Be careful there again, that area is very sensitive. So if it feels like you're doing too much, don't keep going. Now you can turn on this inner thigh a little bit by pointing your toes straight up. And that might be interesting as well. And then we're going to take one more big breath. And then come all the way out. And this time we're going to do little washing machine moves to rinse ourselves out. Oh, that feels good. Like that whole shoulder and my side of my neck is like, oh, much better. Okay, hopefully it's working for you too. We're going to try. Okay, so we're doing the other leg. So now you could, if you bent that leg, straighten that one out, bend the other one. And again, if you want a prop to use, you can put a prop nearby. All right, so we're going to side bend over and come out. Okay, give it a rinse. Side bend over and come out. And we're trying to find those little edges. Ugh. Like if I turn my rib cage this way and I come in, how does that feel? Versus turning my rib cage this way and coming in. How does that feel? Right? For me, there's a difference. It's not a big movement, but it makes a difference in how the pose feels. So I'm picking this one that I just landed on for now. And stretching over. And again, you might wind up with your elbow resting on a block or on the floor or on your thigh. And again, you might decide to take those inner thighs and just kind of roll them down to point the toes straight up. So that engages this muscle in here, which helps the outer hip let go. And maybe you feel that stretch kind of now starting to creep down into the outer parts of your glutes. It's kind of high up on the hip, gluteus medius area, for example. Oh. So we're going to take another deep breath here. Fill up with air, come all the way up. Oh, and then rinse out. Oh, with maybe a little washing machine, maybe some little back and forth, some little neck rolls. Oh goodness. Hi there. All right, so the last thing we're going to do is we're going to stretch out or sit up and find a way to relax. Okay? So whether you want to do kind of a seated meditation or you want to do a shavasana, which that's what I would recommend, is some shavasana. You can do it without being imposed upon by tiny creatures in your house. You can do some shavasana. Oh. All right. So if you lie down and you realize that you still feel a lot of pressure on your hips or your low back, then take either your throw pillows or your blanket and put that underneath your hips. If you're chilly and you want to, you can use the blanket to cover up instead. And then you're going to let yourself just release. It's Earth Day. And so for a moment, just imagine yourself, and you might actually be laying on the surface of the earth, but if you're not, imagine yourself laying...
Sean, your screen's frozen or if it's mine?
I don't know. But if you... I'm just laying down on my back. So if you want to join me here, do. And hopefully it'll work. You can still hear my voice. So imagine that the earth is kind of coming up to meet you and almost cupping you in her hands. So that every muscle can relax. You can wiggle your fingers and toes a little bit and then let them relax. And relax through the shoulders. Let the shoulders grow heavy into the floor. Relax deeply at your hip. Just feeling yourself get heavy into the ground. So there's a little movement going on in the world right now that is suggesting that at all of the times when the clock is on a 1, so at 11 o'clock or at 1 o'clock, that we all pause and take a moment to do 3 things. So the first thing is to relax and feel grateful for what you have in your world, in your life. So just express gratitude for what is and for the good little, even if they're just a few things you have in life to be grateful for. And then the second thing is to wish health and freedom to everyone. So everyone on the planet, imagine everyone healthy and inwardly free of fear, right? So freedom is not an outward thing. There's an expression, but freedom is really found inwardly in our own hearts. And so send out a blessing to yourself and to everyone on the planet. May all beings feel healthy and free of fear. And then the last part of this is to imagine that this beautiful earth is a garden lush with life, lush and able to sustain all life. Now, yogis, take a nice deep breath. Let go with a big sigh. And then we're going to bring ourselves together. Now, if you want to stay longer, you can. You can just stay there as long as you want. But if you have to go back to work and this is your lunch break, then bring yourself up to a seated position. And there is a Buddhist saying, Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu, which means may all beings be happy and free. And so may you be happy and free. Namaste, yogis.